There, I'm Pat with Rivers Edge Chev, and today we're going to make crispy tofu. This tofu is a block of organic tofu, and it has been frozen. When we buy these, we just throw them directly into the freezer, and the freezing process makes it so that the tofu has more openings on the inside, and it also makes it possible to really squeeze out the fluid in the tofu so you can get it really nice and dry. And you can see that it absorbs quite a bit of fluid. And then I break it into pieces. Okay, so you squeeze out the fluid as much as you can, and it's not difficult to do because it releases the fluid really easily once it's been frozen. And then I'm going to break them into pieces that are roughly about this size here. They're about an inch, inch and a half. You don't want to make them too small because then they can get too crispy. I like them to be crispy on the outside but not hard. This is a really nice way to do tofu, and it might convince a lot of people who don't really care for tofu or are not familiar with it that it's a good thing to eat. Okay, I'm going to finish this up, get this all squeezed out and broken into pieces, and then I'll show you what kind of coating I'm going to be putting on it. And tofu is really kind of a bland flavor. It's the seasonings that you put on it or sauce it with that give you the flavors that you are after. It's really kind of a wonderful vehicle that way because it is neutral basically. And I wanted to show you how much fluid came off of that just by squeezing it out. That's a cup of tofu water. Now I am going to make up the mixture for dusting the tofu pieces with. It's cornstarch, and this is just kind of a guesstimate of how much you need, and I think there's probably about a half a cup of cornstarch here because I just want to make sure I have enough to coat all the different pieces. So I've got the cornstarch, the adobo seasoning, and we get our adobo seasoning from Star West. It's a really nice company to work with. So and there's probably about 2 teaspoons of adobo seasoning, and chipotle pepper. I'm going to put about, maybe a teaspoon of chipotle in there. And now I'm going to be adding this to it. Now you don't have to use this at all, but this does really bring up the flavor, and it is quite salty, so you don't need to add salt to this dusting. Anyway, so there's a good heaping teaspoon of that. Knorr chicken broth in the powdered form, and it's a pretty good seasoning to add for certain things like this. Anyway, so I'm going to mix this up together, and you don't have to use any of these. You can use just salt and pepper with the cornstarch, but the main thing is that you use the cornstarch. You could use spike seasoning, almost anything, barbecue seasoning, any kind of dry powdered seasoning you can put in this, whatever your taste buds desire. So anyway, I'm going to mix this up here. And then I'm going to put the tofu into this pan, and I'm going to dust this off with the tofu. I'm going to sprinkle it over. And if there's leftover cornstarch mixture, I can just save that in a container for the next time I make tofu because it'll keep just fine. That looks pretty good. The adobo seasoning smells really good. Okay, and now we're going to shallow fry this in grapeseed oil. You can use any kind of vegetable oil you like, but I prefer to use grapeseed oil. It's a really nice neutral flavored oil. It is actually better than olive oil for health benefits, and it has a very high smoke point for deep frying or frying in general. Anyway, so this is what we're going to do now. We're going to go ahead and get started with the frying process. You can see that the cornstarch is nicely coating the tofu, and it doesn't have to be terribly thick at all. I mean, basically the thinner the better. It's just you want the cornstarch on there. And just as soon as the pan is hot, we'll start frying these off. Looks like it's hot enough now. If you put a little bit of the cornstarch dust in, you'll see that it starts to fry off, and I think that that's just about right. Yep, it is. It's going to fry. And this is a shallow frying method. It's not deep frying. And basically you just fry them off until they're crispy. This would actually make a good taco filling too, if you made the pieces a little bit smaller. And so the reason I tear it is because the seasoning and the coating will stick to it better rather than having just flat surfaces. It doesn't take long for it to fry up at all. The tofu is already cooked. I mean, you can eat it just out of the, as a plain chunk if you wanted to. But, so it doesn't take long to just get it crisped up. Batch is done crisping up. And now for the last of it to go in. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of scallions on here as a top dressing. And then we'll make up our salad and show it to you when it's done. This is dinner tonight. I think that just about anybody would be pretty happy with this dish. And especially if you don't tell them it's tofu. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.